The richest person you know probably never told you. There's no car on the drive that gives it away. No watch. No holiday photos. If you passed them in the supermarket, you'd assume they were doing about the same as you. And here is the part that should interest you more. You might be one of them and not know it. Because almost everything that actually indicates money is invisible. Not just to other people, but to the person it belongs to. Nobody sends you a letter when you cross the line from surviving to steady. There's no notification, no moment. So you keep feeling behind long after you stopped being behind. I want to give you 7 things to check. Not aspirations, not goals. 7 things that are either already true of you or they aren't. None of these 7 are about how much you earn. You can earn a great deal and have none of them, and plenty of people do. They're also not a test you pass or fail. Most people watching will have 2 or 3. Some of you will have 5 and be genuinely surprised because nobody has ever pointed at them and said the words out loud. So count as we go. Be honest with yourself. And stay for the 7th because it's the one that changes what you do tomorrow. Sign 1. You know roughly what's leaving your account before it leaves. Not to the penny. Nobody knows to the penny. But when the payments go out at the start of the month, nothing in that list makes your stomach drop. There's no envelope you're avoiding, no number you're bracing for. Think about what has to be true for that to be true. It means your outgoings have stopped moving. It means you're not being ambushed by things you forgot you signed up for. It means that at some point, and you almost certainly can't name the month, you got to the end of the guessing. Most people describe that as boring. Boring is the word people reach for when their money stops being dramatic. But notice what that boredom actually is. Financial drama is not a personality trait. It's a symptom. It happens when what comes in and what goes out sit so close together that small events become large ones. A tire becomes a crisis. A birthday becomes a problem. A school trip becomes a conversation you have at 11 at night. If your month has stopped generating drama, then the gap between those 2 numbers got wide enough to absorb ordinary life. Nobody congratulates you for that. There's no day it happens on. You just gradually stop bracing. Here's a specific version so you can check it properly. It's the 28th of the month. You do not know exactly what's in the account, and it has not occurred to you to find out. Not because you're careless, because this week it doesn't matter. That's sign 1. Sign 2. You don't check your balance every day. There was a version of you, maybe recently, maybe years ago, who opened that app more than once a day. Not to do anything, just to look. To confirm the number hadn't moved while you weren't watching it. That habit has a name, financial vigilance, and it's one of the most reliable indicators of insecurity there is, because it has almost nothing to do with the amount. It's about whether you trust the amount to still be there. Here's the tell. If you can't remember the last time you checked, or if you check once a week when you actually need to know something, then something changed. Your money became predictable enough that watching it stopped being useful. There's a line in Ecclesiastes chapter 5, verse 12 that I keep coming back to. Sweet is the sleep of a laborer, whether he eats little or much, but the full stomach of the rich will not let him sleep. Read that twice because it isn't saying what people assume it says. It is not telling you poverty is peaceful. It's telling you the 2 things come apart, that how much you have and how well you sleep are 2 different measurements, and that it is entirely possible to have a great deal and sleep badly. Here's the specific version. Something unexpected costs you $60. You are annoyed about it for roughly 4 minutes. and then you forget it happened. 4 minutes, not 4 days, not at 3 in the morning. So if you're sleeping and you're not watching the number, count it. It is worth more than most of the things people post about. Sign 3. You can say no to money without doing the maths first. Somebody offers you an extra shift, a weekend of overtime, a bit of work that pays well and costs you your Saturday. And you turn it down. Not because you're rich, because you thought about your Saturday first and the money second. That order matters enormously. For a lot of people, the order runs the other way, permanently. Any money offered gets taken, because the question was never, do I want this? The question was, can I afford to refuse it? And when the answer to that is no, you don't really have a schedule. You have availability. Being able to decline paid work is one of the clearest markers there is of a position that has changed. And almost nobody counts it, because from the outside, it can look like laziness, and from the inside, it feels like nothing at all. It isn't nothing. It is the first thing money actually buys. Before comfort, long before status, it buys you the right to be asked and say no. Here's the specific version. Somebody asks whether you can cover Saturday, and the first feeling that arrives is irritation, not temptation, irritation, because they've asked for your Saturday, and your Saturday is now a thing you own. Be honest with yourself on this one. Not whether you would say no, whether the last time you did, you had to run the numbers first. Sign 4. You buy the version that lasts. Boots are the usual example, and it's a good one. Cheap boots cost $30 and last a season. Good boots cost $150 and last 10 years. Across a decade, the cheap ones cost you $300 and the good ones cost $150. And you had wet feet the whole time. Everybody understands that arithmetic. That's not the interesting part. The interesting part is what's required to act on it, not $150. $150 you can part with today without something else going wrong on Thursday. That is the real barrier, and it is why being short of money is so expensive. You are not permitted to make the cheaper long-term decision. Every choice has to be made on what you can survive this week. So if you've noticed yourself buying the better version, the appliance with the longer guarantee, the shoes you'll get rehealed, the tires you didn't have to think about twice, that is not you becoming extravagant. That is you being released from the most expensive constraint there is. Here's the specific version. Something in the house breaks. You replace it once, properly, and then you do not think about it again for 6 years. That silence, 6 years of not thinking about a washing machine, is what money actually buys. Nobody puts that on a billboard. And you probably felt slightly guilty at the till. Most people do. That guilt is a leftover from a version of your life that has already ended. Before I go on, how many of you got so far? Put the number in the comments. I read them, and half of what ends up on this channel started as somebody's answer to a question like that. Sign 5. Nobody is waiting on you this month. No brother waiting to hear whether you can help with the car. No parent whose prescription depends on which week you get paid. No adult child holding off on mentioning the bill. Now, I want to be careful here, because for a lot of people watching this, that is not true. And it isn't true because you are the one everybody comes to. Being the person your family relies on is not a financial failure. It is very often the entire reason you know how to manage money at all. Nobody learns to stretch a paycheck in comfortable conditions, but it is a cost, and it never appears on any statement anywhere. So if you have reached a point where the phone can ring and it is just your sister ringing, not your sister needing something, you have crossed a line most people never see, let alone celebrate. And there's a harder version of this I'm not going to skip. Some of you have this one because the people who used to depend on you are gone. That is not the same thing, and I won't pretend it is. Here's the specific version. Your phone rings, you see who it is, and you answer it without bracing first. That half second before you pick up, where you used to run through what they might need, is gone. But if the quiet in your month is because everybody's steady, count it. Sign 6. Advertising has stopped working on you. You scroll past it. Not with effort, not with willpower. You just don't want it. The watch, the trainers, the kitchen, the car. Somebody spent a great deal of money putting that in front of you, and it slid straight off. This one surprises people because it doesn't feel like wealth. It feels like getting older or getting boring. It's neither. What advertising sells is not the object. It's the feeling of being a person who has the object. And once you have some ground under your feet, that feeling stops being for sale because you no longer need to be told what you are. There's a line in 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 6. 4 words most people miss here. Godliness with contentment is great gain. Great gain, not great sacrifice, not great restraint. Paul is not describing somebody going without. He's describing somebody who has acquired something, and the thing acquired is the absence of wanting. Which means contentment is not the consolation prize you accept when you can't have more. It's one of the things you can end up with. Here's the specific version. You see something you would genuinely have wanted 5 years ago, and what arrives is nothing at all. Not restraint, not willpower, not a decision you had to make. Nothing. If you have stopped being sellable, you are holding something that a very large industry would very much like back. Sign 7, the one I told you to stay for. You have started making decisions for a version of your life you will not be present for. It might be small. You put money somewhere you have no plan to touch. You mentioned to somebody where the documents are. You looked at a photograph of your family and thought, not with dread, about what happens after. That is a completely different mental posture from the one you're in when money is tight, and you cannot fake your way into it. When you're under pressure, your entire financial horizon is the end of the month. That is not short-sightedness. That is triage. And triage is the correct response when you are actually in it. The horizon extending is not a decision you make. It's a symptom of pressure lifting. So if you have caught yourself thinking in years, in decades, in after, then something underneath you went solid enough to stand on. Here's the specific version. You made a decision this year whose benefit arrives after you're gone, and you did not find it morbid. You found it satisfying. That is not a personality change. That's a pressure reading. Most people never notice the day their horizon moved. They just notice, eventually, that they're planning again. Count that one twice. It is the rarest thing on this list. So, how many? Here's what I want you to notice. Now all 7 are out on the table. Not one of them is a number. Not one is an amount, a salary, a balance, a portfolio. Every single one is a behavior that became possible. Sleeping, refusing, buying once, planning far. That is not me being poetic. That's the actual definition. Money is not the pile. Money is the range of things you can do without asking permission of your own bank account. which explains something that confuses people. You can meet somebody earning 3 times what you earn who has none of these, who checks their balance daily, takes every shift, buys cheap twice, and cannot say no to anything. That person has a larger income and less money in every way that will matter to them on a Tuesday. And it explains the reverse, which is probably you. Because if you counted 3 or 4 just now, you are further along than the number in your account suggests, and considerably further along than you have been telling yourself. Nobody sends a letter when it happens. So consider this the letter. I'm putting together a guide on the thinking behind all of this, not the numbers, the head. It isn't finished. If you want it the day it is, the link's in the description. And if you counted 1 or none, I want to say something to you before you go. Not one of these 7 is a character trait. Every one of them is a thing that became possible when pressure came off. You are not less disciplined than the person who counted 6. You are earlier. Nobody was ever going to tell you which ones you already had either. The whole system is built to tell you what you're missing. There has never been any money in pointing out that somebody is doing better than they thought. So hear this. May your month get boring. May you sleep through the night without checking. May you have room to say no to something and buy the thing that lasts and plan for somebody you are never going to meet. And may you notice the day it happens instead of finding out years later that it already had. There's one number that moves all 7 of these at once. It's smaller than you would guess. Most people cross it without noticing. And everything on this list gets easier the moment you do. One last thing. I'm not a financial advisor, and nothing in this video is personal financial advice. I'm someone who went looking for the blueprint nobody handed us, and I'm just passing on what I found. What you do with it is between you and God.